Hello everyone, my name is Noha Fouad and I was one of the co-chairs that curated Tasmeem Doha 2019. Tasmeem is an international biennial art and design conference that is hosted by Virginia Commonwealth University in Doha, Qatar since 2004. And the word of my choice for the Festival City project is process. Process could mean anything depending on the context, but the one underlying factor is it always involves an element of storytelling. So whether you're explaining the process of making a cheese sandwich or the process of sending a rocket ship to space, it's a story. And particularly for us, creatives and makers, process is the foundation of everything that we do, but we rarely get to see it. We tend to always showcase the final polished outcome, which is why, in my opinion, the process, the narrative, the story of an idea reaching fruition deserves to be celebrated. And that was kind of the underlying factor when we were designing everything for this conference. For workshops, for example, when we had the open call, we made sure to pick workshops that had an interesting process, even if the outcome itself was relatively uninteresting. Same thing with the speakers. We invited a number of speakers, such as Sir David Adjaye, for example, who we made sure, again, when they were giving their talks, they weren't just showcasing a magnificent portfolio, but rather showing the process and explaining, how certain design decisions were made and why they were made to make it more relatable to the students. Because at the end of the day, this was hosted by a university, and it had to be, again, relatable to the students. The students had to be able to see themselves in these guests. And we even extended kind of this idea of process to the environmental design of the actual conference. So, for example, we opted for things like exposed scaffolding for seating. And this was in a way paying homage to the construction scene in Doha, because buildings go up in Doha like that. And, you always see construction and scaffolding everywhere. But then all of a sudden it's gone and boom, there's this, architectural masterpiece standing there. So we wanted to kind of highlight the scaffolding because it's gone without a trace, and we wanted it to be the outcome. We wanted to emphasize its existence. And in that same sense, when we were thinking about, okay, how can we allow this conference to live beyond the 3 days of the festival? And that's when we designed what we called the process wall that we were able to take around the world and exhibit internationally, for example, in Amman Design Week in Jordan and in London Design Festival last year. And what was interesting, for example, in the London Design Fair when we exhibited there, is that people would stop by our booth, and it was just very different than everyone else's because we weren't presenting a product or a service. We were kind of just presenting our mess. We were showcasing our thought process, our fails, the hundreds of design iterations that we went through for like the little event booklet, all the scribbles, all the fabric snippets that we tested for the lanyards, full, packets of old gum that we got font inspiration from. That whole thing, that was our outcome. And once again, it allowed us to be relatable to people passing by. People would stop and say, oh wow, that looks like my bedroom, or oh wow, that looks like my office, or oh wow, that looks like the inside of my brain. And that was, I think, our strength, because every little element of this massive collage, it had its own story, and it contributed to a bigger story. So, in my opinion, I believe that the process, the story, is sadly underrated, and especially in the creative field. And unfortunately, a lot of museums, galleries, conferences, exhibitions, festival, they fall culprits to this, and because we're regularly presented with the final outcome with barely just a brief line of how it got there. So I think it's time to change that slightly, and it's time to give the story the spotlight that it deserves, because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, the story is what remains.